Sean Kelleher. Will the Irish team ever be as consistent as the All Blacks or any of the top three sides? They clearly have the talent and the ability to play with and beat the top teams, as the Australian win showed. What is standing in Ireland's way?
Well, first of all, of course they won't be as consistent as the All Blacks. They never have been, and they never will be. Over the 150-year history of the game, the Southern Hemisphere teams have been the dominant force. Since World War II, Australia, before World War II, there were just two Southern Hemisphere teams, New Zealand and South Africa. We're the same size as New Zealand, but we're trying to support three football codes. They're only supported by and large one football code, and that makes a difference. I think it's a numbers game simply. Yes, of course we have the talent, but we never have the talent all at the same time. So when we have good halfbacks, we have a poor front row or whatever over the years. We will always be periodically good enough, but not on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I think, Sean, the fact is that, in New Zealand, as in Wales, I suppose, but more so in New Zealand, it's our national game. So, it is a numbers game. You've got three sports here in other countries, including England, Australia. You've got other sports that dominate. New Zealand, who are most consistent side, let's face it, have so many players that play the national game.
All right. Dermot Carney wants to know who the best Irish player in the tournament is. I don't know whether he's related to Carney or not, but anyway, Dermot Carney, best Irish player for you?
Well, best Irish player, although Rob Kearney did have a great tournament. I think it's either Cian Healy or Sean O'Brien, I'd have to think. Three in the mix, Ferris, O'Brien and Healy. I would have to say probably Sean O'Brien. Your thoughts?
It was very hard to pick a best player in the tournament on the basis that of the players we've mentioned, none of them were, in every one of them there was a bad match somewhere. There wasn't any Irish player who played every game absolutely consistently. But for the guy who made the biggest contribution, I think Sean O'Brien was hugely important to Ireland's performance over the tournament.
Elliot Sharon, does the RFU, and I think we've answered this question before, and Sean Kelleher's, Elliot Sharon, does the RFU have the funds to make rugby the #1 sport on this island? And why is rugby not in more secondary schools, especially outside of Dublin?
Well, I mean, first of all, you take the great tradition of Gaelic football and hurling in schools around Ireland. Why should they turn around and give up that tradition? I mean, you go to St. Flannan's in Ennis and you say to them, lads, forget about the Harty Cup, play rugby instead. You go to St. Peter's in Wexford and you say to them, forget your hurling tradition, play rugby instead. Why should they?
Because it's about tradition for you, because, I mean, it's the same as the situation saying that rugby, let's face it, is an English-based game, founded in England. GAA is an Irish-based game.
Yeah, but there's also soccer then, and you've got the great North Dublin soccer teams. You have Donegal, some great school soccer teams up there. So I think, why turn around to a school and say just change the sport in which you have the guts of a century of tradition? I'd be all opposed to it.
Yeah, I think it's part of tradition. I think you should keep that GAA, that part of Irish culture.
I have a question for you from June Vaughan.
Jude. Sorry about that, Jude.
What is it?
Hiya, June.
Yeah, no, you're good on the Beatles. Hey, Jude.
Hey,
June.
Hey, Jude. Hey, June.
Should Sonny Bill Williams be on the bench or starting? And could Richie McCaw retire soon after?
Yes, he could. Yes, he could. But a bit like Brian, I don't think he will.
No,
I think
don't answer the Brian. Just get question.
Oh, no.
There's one coming up.
I don't think that McCaw will. I think he'll have a sabbatical now, injury sabbatical for say maybe 6 months when he gets his ankle the screw tightened, and God forbid how good he'll be then if he gets the screw back. But I think McCaw will keep going for maybe another season. Sonny Bill Williams has a lot of fans. I don't think he has the complete game yet to start the match. I think Richard Kahui is the better all-round player at the moment and deserves his opportunity. But I think Sonny Bill Williams is a brilliant impact player. So I think they've got it about right as far as the selection. Okay, on to Cornelius Donegan. Do you think the result against Wales was due to bad-managed side, or was it down to an off day of some of the players? And who do you think fills at the fly-half position better, Sexton or O'Gara? We could be on all night with this. I know what George is going to answer.
All with me. I mean, I'll answer quite quickly. O'Gara at fly half. Now, the first part of your question.
Sexton for me.
Yes, it was down to bad management, but not necessarily bad coaching. It was down to bad management on field. I think it was down to bad captaincy to turn down 3 kicks a goal. I think was a dreadful decision. I think our inability on field to change our strategy. We only had one, and they were looking at a French defence that was coming up quickly. There seemed to be no alternative to that. I think there was a combined lack, and I also think that their heads were in the semi-final and they were still had a quarter-final to play. I'm absolutely convinced Ireland thought they were going to be in the semi-final.
Yeah, I did too as well, I'd have to say.
I have one for you here it's question number 7 from Owen Roach. Inconsistency of refereeing, the offside line, and teams that abuse it.
Great question, Owen. I think it's been our bugbear, hasn't it, George, for the last maybe 5 years, that I think referees are looking at everything else, and I can't understand why we repeatedly see teams infringing past the offside line, around rucks and mauls. There is meant to be a line, if you imagine a line across the field, painted in white, at the last person's foot. Every time we see the ref have a look, we see behind him teams, including Ireland, including New Zealand, sneak up behind the line, which really means that the game goes back to a defensive. That really means it's harder for the team with the ball to get over the gain line. So the advantage then goes to the defensive side. So I think something has to come into where the touch judges have more of a say in teams getting back, so that the touch judge can suddenly signal you're not back 10 yards or 10 metres like they do in rugby league and penalise them.
You're a bit of a movie buff. Do you remember a movie with Jeff Goldblum called The Fly?
I do.
Yeah.
Remember the original? Help me! Help me!
Yes. Well, now, the point about The Fly has so many eyes, he can see behind him and in front of him. The problem, to be fair for a referee, is he can't see what's behind him. Yeah. So your point about the assistant referee is very important, that the assistant referees should police the hind. It's a very simple rule. You got to be behind the hindmost foot, and all he has to do is look and say, bingo.
I remember actually ordering a pair of glasses from the back of a comic book that used to be able to see out the back, which was great at the beach. But, okay, that being said, Enda Lonergan, does anybody else think there is a hint of denial in Brian O'Driscoll stating that he thinks he can make the 2013 Lions tour on World Cup in 2011 form? I believe he would not make the 2011 Lions tour if there was one. That's from Enda Lonergan. So basically, do you think Brian O'Driscoll would make the tour now, and do you think he's in denial, thinking that he can make the tour? This is the wrong person to ask, I think.
Well, first of all, I am when I heard that, I was deeply worried. This is, first of all, if you look at the player himself, this is a player who has put his body on the line for Ireland more than any other player I know. I cannot believe that orthopedically Brian O'Driscoll's in good shape. To add another 18 months of collisions is, to me, and I really worry about saying this, it's about a heavyweight boxer going on a bit too long. Second part of the question by Enda, about on the basis of current form, I couldn't possibly see Brian O'Driscoll making the Lions in 2013. I think it would be highly unlikely.
Funny enough, I probably can see him, because I think coaches have made mistakes previously on not taking experienced players on the Lions, players that can gel everybody, players that people respect and want to play around. I think that if you look into the centres and you think they're probably going to take the guts of, 40 players, I think then O'Driscoll, if he's still, as you say, still in real good health physically, then I think that, that's certainly a goal that he can aspire to.
Just before you go, it's a very interesting historical precedent, because you said, the coaches make the mistake about not taking older players. The 1955 Lions that went to South Africa, the manager decided before the team was picked, they wouldn't pick anybody, anybody over the age of 30. So the great Jack Kyle was 31 and they wouldn't bring him. So you don't look at a guy's birth cert when you're picking him. You pick him on how he's performing.
And look at the birth cert. But the last one, I suppose, who's been your...
They looked at the birth cert, they'd never pick you.
Look at yourself. But I suppose the last question, who's been your player of the World Cup? And funny enough, unlike Lomu, Campese, Michael Jones, John Eales, these players, there hasn't really been, in my opinion, this year, a standout player that you can say has really made this tournament his, has there? There's nobody that everybody's talking about in the way that they've played. There's been players that have played well in a few games, Sean O'Brien included, Ferris, Pocock, McCaw, but, if you had to pick now your standout player before the final, who would you say it was?
Well, I'd kind of slightly rephrase the question. If I was picking a team, and which player that I've watched in this World Cup would I write down first on my team sheet, which is in effect is what I mean, the outstanding player. But the one player that I would not go into a match without, for me, is Man Nono. Yeah. I think Nono is the most underrated back for most of his career. I don't think he's ever got the credit, but he has been magnificent for New Zealand so far.
And you heard it here, folks. George and I agree on something for once, because I think Nonu has been outstanding. I think George is quite right. Very underrated, very unassuming, just does his work, defence and attack. And I think, if you're looking at the outstanding player this season, not just in this World Cup, then I think it's Ma Nonu. So on that note of positivity that we're agreeing, thank you very much for your questions. And hopefully we'll see you either after this tournament or before the next Six Nations.
Well, if Brian O'Driscoll is in denial saying that he's going to make the 2013 Lions, my view is see you after the 2015 World Cup final.
Now that is denial.